Hey everyone, it's Pittico from Rock Daydream Nation, and I've got Tom Curless from Curlessmania back to the channel. How are you, mate?
Peter, I'm doing great. I'm so great. Son, thank you for having me back to your channel. It's always a blast. Love it.
Absolutely, great to have you on. Today we have got a ding dong battle, and this is a battle of fractions. We are going to do a show which is Deep Purple Machine Head in an album battle with Deep Purple and Burn. So effectively, this is Mark II, Ian Gillan, Richie Blackmore, Ian Pace, Roger Glover, John Ward versus Mark III, David Coverdale, Glenn Hughes, John Ward, Ian Pace, Richie Blackmore. Two albums we're going to discuss track by track. Was this a tough one for you, Tom?
Tough. I'm not sure if that even really qualifies it. It's very extremely difficult. I find these to be two heavyweight Deep Purple records. Probably two of my favorites, honestly, if I'm really honest about it. Of Deep Purple's whole catalog. So this is, I mean, it's just like wow. This is like trying to pick two pieces of gold. It's just tough.
Absolutely. So, what was your first encounter with Deep Purple?
Yeah, I would say my first encounter with Deep Purple was I was pretty young. We used to vacation in this place called Three Lakes, Wisconsin, and we it was up in the woods, and I was young, and I had older sisters, and my oldest sister, I used to hang out with like the teenagers. I was this little sprout, and I would like, how can I hang out with you guys? And they had a boathouse with a stereo system in it, and I remember one of the guys putting on Made in Japan and cranking it up. And I think he played the live version of Smoke on the Water or something. And I was like, that was it. I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I love the who is this band? What is this? And I remember looking at the cover, the gold cover with the live shot. And I was like, I was captivated from that point on. And I was like, I have to know that I have to know more about this band. And so I got a copy of Machine Head pretty young. I think I was literally like it was one of my earliest albums that I owned. So it's really goes back and really Deep Purple goes way back in my DNA. I think I was like 10 years old when I had a copy of Machine Head. So there you go. So yes, I go way back with Deep Purple.
Yeah, good stuff. I had a friend at school, Ross Stanley, and he had a compilation called The Very Best of Deep Purple. It was one of those British compilations that had about 14, 15 of their songs, all eras except Mark One or the Mark Four era with Tommy Bolin. And I played it and I fell in love. And that was really my gateway to hard rock and heavy metal because I discovered a lot of the offshoot bands like Whitesnake, Rainbow, Gillan. It's just such a big family tree that listening to the very best of Deep Purple crystallized my love for Richie Blackmore and the band. And I think Highway Star was the one that really
Yeah.
got me. Just the keyboard and the interplay between Richie and John. It was just absolutely fantastic. So,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, I
there we
mean,
have it.
you're a massive Deep Purple guy, right? I mean, that's like your one of your
Absolutely
yeah.
a Deep Purple tragic, my friend. Deep Purple tragic. But anyway,
Yeah.
we live
Yeah.
with it. And
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing to live with. So, all right.
No.
So, we're going to do a ding dong album battle. So, we'll start off with Machine Head. So, Machine
Yeah.
Head came out in 1972. And this is probably the biggest selling Deep Purple album worldwide. I think it went top 10 in America, number 7. I think it's gone about 2 to 3 platinum. To be quite frank, it probably needs to be recertified. I think it's done a lot more, but it is the biggest Deep Purple selling album because when you look at the songs on this album, Tom, it's basically the song set for Deep Purple. There are songs out of this album that are rusted on, and songs like "Smoke on the Water." If they didn't play it, there'd be a riot in the streets. So,
Right. Yeah.
why don't we do a song by song analysis, and we'll start off with "Highway Star," which has always been a bit of the show opener.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Highway Star is just unbelievable. I mean, to this day, it still blows me away. I mean, it's one of those songs that you just I never get. We were talking about this on another episode recently, where the song that you just never get tired of. I've heard it a million times, and I just don't get sick of it. It has so much kinetic energy to it that it's inevitable you're going to get sucked into the when it just starts with that and it's perfect. You feel like you're going 80 miles an hour in a car, 90 miles an hour in a vehicle or something. And when that organ comes in and then the wail, the Ian Gillan, yeah, and you're just like, oh my God, where? And then it just nah, and the whole band kicks in, and you're like, wow, what is happening? And every time it gets me. So I just absolutely love this track.
I think it's probably the best introduction. I mean, the opening sequence is a 35-second bass guitar intro, and the band launches into it. I think that's arguably probably the best opening part of any Deep Purple song. Wouldn't you agree? I think it may be the best opening Deep Purple track on any album. Pound for pound.
I could argue that. I think I could argue that. Yeah. Yeah. It's arguable for sure.
There's so much to unpackage. You got the keyboard bits with John Lord, and he's bringing the Baroque, the Bach, the switched on Bach, bringing it to the masses. Yes, and then you got Richie with that beautiful tone. And then, he does his little sort of melodic, tasteful guitar lines. I mean, the thing about Richie's guitar playing is that he was fast, but it was hummable and it was melodic, because there's a lot of guitar players, especially in the 80s, where it's shredding. You can't remember the guitar lead breaks. You know that, I'm impressed. I love those guitar lead breaks, but it doesn't stick in the head. But those guitar lines of Ritchie Blackmore, whether they were solo or it was the riff, was always hooky and memorable. Don't you think? It really just got in the head.
Absolutely. No, you're right on it. I mean, it's uncanny, because it's almost like we were talking about that in a different episode about the Cars, talking about Elliot Easton, that you could almost sing the solos. It's kind of similar with Ritchie Blackmore in a hard rock context. You remember the solos, you remember them because they're so hooky.
Ian Pace's drumming, so much groove, and the drum sound. Now, they recorded this album in some really adverse circumstances, in the sense it was in the Grand Hotel in Montreux. Right. And, they were sort of positioned in, one was in a bathroom, one was, all these different rooms, and you had
down a hallway. Somebody's down a hallway. Yeah.
Yeah. The Rolling Stone mobile outside. But the sound, even though it's a little dry, but the drumming sounds so good. I think arguably it's got Pacey's best sonically sounding drum sound on any Deep Purple album. I'm sure there are going to be folks who are going to make comments and say no, but that's my opinion. What do you think?
Oh my God, Ian Pace, he sounds phenomenal on this record, and he's playing out of his mind. I mean, Ian Pace is never really. I mean, to me, he's one of the best rock drummers. People don't talk about him a lot. I meant in the last episode we talked about this, how people don't talk about Ian Pace a lot. He is one of the best drummers in rock. I mean, you listen to, like you said, Highway Star alone. Just listen to that track. We'll get to Burn in a minute, but we'll be talking about that too. But like Highway Star is just like phenomenal. Like you said it. He's got groove. He's cranking, but he's got groove through the whole thing, which is hard to do.
He absolutely swings. And I think the peak of his powers was that run of albums that he did from, say, In Rock to maybe just before Come Taste the Band. But these two albums that we're covering, I think, are the stone cold peak of Ian Pace's drumming, committed to tape.
Yeah. Agreed.
Roger Glover, the bass, so memorable. The bass really propulses this band. He's a guy that doesn't get spoken about.
No.
He's solid. He propels the song. It's a lot of kinetic energy. I think you summed it up well, and they're really combining. They're all in synergy, and this is, it's a proto-heavy metal song, really.
It really is. It really is. I don't think people had heard things quite like, I mean, okay, Zeppelin had been out, but it was like this was kind of like this, like you said, this is kind of pushing the envelope to lead what leads to heavy metal, essentially.
I
You
know
know?
Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden and a lot of heavy metal singers, especially from the new wave of British heavy metal, really cited Ian Gillan in rock as an influence. But you just hear that sort of his vocals on this album, especially at the start of Highway Star. You
Yes.
could. It's the
Ah!
genesis, the seed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. He's just
yeah,
doing that
absolutely.
huge wail. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
giving Percy Plant, run for his money, pound for pound.
Definitely. Definitely. For sure.
All right,
Yeah.
so we go to Maybe I'm a Leo. So this is a very hooky song, and again, it's the riff is the king of the song. So you've got this really hooky riff, and everything wraps around it. What do you think of this?
You nailed it. I mean, to me, it's just a king riff. It's like it's one of those riffs you just cannot. I mean, I can sing it right. I mean, it sticks in your head. It's just a very very hooky. It's like Richie Blackmore at like his riffage best. And also, again, like you mentioned, the rhythm section, Ian Pace and Roger Glover are just there, just right in that pocket and the and it just everything just clicks. It's like this. It's
It
so perfect.
swings. It
Swing.
swings.
Yeah.
And the space between the notes, there's kind of space. You can hear that the notes actually breathe. Um,
Mhm.
there's just
Yeah.
it's got the right rhythm, it swings, and it's a really compelling lyric and a vocal line from Ian Gillan.
Yeah, it's almost funky. I mean, it's literally almost to the point of being like funky, which you never would think of with Deep Purple, but they can be. When Richie's got the funk in him. He's got it. It's
Yeah,
like heavy funk or something.
he hates funk, but he's got
Yeah,
the
he hates
ability
it,
to
but
play funk. Like
yeah.
Stormbringer, I'm bringing that up. You
Yes,
know,
yes.
I saw Glenn Hughes. I did a Q&A with him, and he basically said, look, Richie hates funk, but boy, he can play the funk, even with his
Yeah.
thumb, which he did. He
Yes.
did a solo in Stormbringer with his thumb, but, he's
He
such a
can do it.
brilliant guitarist. He could do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No, so I just think this is sort of a deep track kind of gem. I just think it's like people don't talk about. I mean, it's a great, great deep track.
Okay, and then we go to Pictures of Home. Starts off with that wonderful Ian Pace drum pattern right at the start. What do you think of this song?
Yeah. Another great riff that do where I mean it's just again sticks right in your head. And isn't this the one where the John Lord does this crazy solo, right? Isn't
He,
this the
it does, and
isn't
I think it
yeah.
goes a little bit into the category of gallop rock because a lot of the Deep Purple, especially in rock, were of that pace that was very gallopy. So I think this sort of continues. It's kind of got a bit of a gallop to it, a lot of kinetic energy. There's so much kinetic energy, but the melodies are compelling, and Ian Gillan's vocal lines are just hooks you in.
Yes, yes. When he does the pictures of home, and then that whole like, so it's John Lord. I mean, it's like, who was doing solos like that in that day? I don't think anybody was. It's almost like you said. You said it already. It's almost like classical on steroids or something, playing with a rock band. It's yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was in the confines of hard rock, but it wasn't prog because you know
Right.
how there were keyboards. It was still very tight in the confines of a 5 minute and 3 second rock song. Um,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
everything just everything was in the right place. But
Yes.
look, the production on this album it's very. I wouldn't say people could say clinical is a bad word, but I'm trying to think of a word that has a positive connotation. It's very dry, but in a good sense that you can see there's this separation of the instruments. It just pops out of the speakers. Maybe you can
Yes.
articulate a little bit better than what I just did then.
Yes. No, I agree with you. I think the mix on this record is fantastic too. I mean, the mixing, the fact that they did it with the Rolling Stones mobile in a basically a hotel. I mean, it's like, what? I mean, this sounds so fantastic. You're like, how did they get this amazing sound? But they just obviously it was just they technically they must have had they experimented, I think, with the rooms and where they put instruments and where they put amps, and it was hugely successful. And I think this album sounds amazing. And um, what was I going to say about this? Oh, I was going to say that John Lord also, because you were mentioning keyboards, how like it's not like prog rock, because I mean, I think John Lord felt like he needed to compete with Ritchie a little bit, so he had his keyboards put through like distortion pedals, and like he's got tough keyboards. Like the keyboards are there, but they're tough, you
They're
know?
heavy. They're heavy,
Yeah,
tough, and he's like a
yeah,
de facto rhythm player. You could
right.
actually say even a second guitarist,
Yeah,
in a sense. But it's some of the heaviest keyboard sounds that are committed to tape. Were
yeah. Oh,
definitely
absolutely.
with John Lord. It just brings a lot of oomph. That's not to say Richie's guitar tone was thin. It was very thick and,
Right,
machine gun. I think that Richie, for him to function, he has to respect the people around him. And
right.
I think there was so much respect for John Lord, and that lifted his game. So whether
Yes.
it was in a live setting, and they had sort of a mental connection where, he'd be improvising and then John would come in. I think, for certain periods, Ian Gillan, there was that respect, but
Yeah,
then that
yeah,
respect was kind of lost. And I think that Richie sort of thought that Ian wasn't looking after his voice or he's mucking around. And that's where the conflict began. And there was a lot of, I believe that the rot was starting around here.
yes.
That there was, maybe even a little bit earlier, that there was some animosity between those two. They're two alpha males. And when you've got two alpha males in a band, it becomes very volatile. But out of that
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
fantastic art. But with
yeah,
Richie, I think Richie performs well when there's new blood because he needs to be excited. He needs to have the blood flowing, and or when there's adversity and he's got this. I'll show you. And I think
mhm.
maybe this album, because there was a lot of adversity. They were recording in conditions that was, I believe it was actually freezing. It was pretty tough conditions. I think out of this adversity, he came up with some great guitar lines. There was inspiration, and he seems engaged. But you can tell
Yeah.
the albums when he's not engaged is where he's obviously thinking of his next project, Rainbow,
Yes, yes.
or Ian Gillan's going to be leaving the band soon. you know,
Yeah, yeah,
I'll push him out. Yeah, you
yeah.
can sort of document through Deep Purple when Richie's engaged and his playing has that more fire in the belly. And I think this is
Right.
one where, I think maybe it's the adversity factor. And this is where he's really committed and he's just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think you're absolutely right. I think he's very committed on this record. You can feel it. And I love your comment about you can sort of tell when he's disconnected. It's so true. There's a couple records you're like, Richie's not connected on this, or he's not fully
Yeah.
engaged.
I mean, I love Stormbringer, but seriously, I mean, he plays a solo on it with his thumb. Probably better
Yeah.
than some guitarists with five fingers, but he can do it. He's
Yes.
just genius.
He is.
Um,
He's amazing.
yeah, never before. This was a single, but it flopped. I think it's kind of catchy. It's kind of hooky. What do
Mhm.
you think of this song?
Yeah, I can see how they picked this song for the single. I mean, it's under 4 minutes. It's pretty straightforward for Deep Purple. I mean, compared to some of the stuff that we've already heard. This one's kind of, that da 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 da. I mean, it's pretty I mean, you can see how it's almost like, okay, let's pick this one as a single because it's so straightforward for them. But it's Deep Purple. It's still Deep Purple in their prime. So even if it's a simple song, they're going to make it rock and they're going to make it swing. I do think that Ian gives a great vocal on this track. I do love his vocals. The da da da. I just think he's engaged. He's definitely trying to make this song something for sure.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. It's kind of them. I think out of all the songs, this is probably the most poppy song. And I don't say that, to denigrate the song, but it's probably the most commercial song that you could
Mhm.
imagine. The bean counters were thinking this is probably the song that will chart, but it didn't. There's
Yeah.
some really interesting dynamics in the song. The push and pull. There's a little bit of there's a lot of groove happening, and again, Ian's got a very compelling and tasty melodic vocal line. I think Ian's vocals all the way through are just really, really tasty.
Yes. Yes. You can tell that he's like in rock, he's going for like crazy stuff. He's going nuts. He's going kind of almost off the grid. On this record, like I love how you said it, just said it. It's kind of almost like he's a little more reined in, but it's still great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think in rock they had a free template to do what? I mean, they could just create the rules because,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Ian Gillan wanted to make a mark. He was told, like, Richie knew that Rod Evans was not the future of Deep Purple. Rod Evans being a crooner. And when Led Zeppelin came out, he thought, okay, that's what I want to do. And
Yes. Yeah.
probably had a few words to Ian, and Ian just went loose
He went
and
nuts.
created a masterpiece and a blueprint of modern hard rock and heavy metal.
Yeah.
So, when there are not many folks doing that sort of stuff in the day, rules can be broken because you're creating your own art.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Smoke on the Water. Wow. The song that
yeah, what do
conquered
you say?
America. This did
Yeah.
chart. This went to number 4
Okay.
in the US charts. Guitar solo that conquered America. A lot of people probably think of Deep Purple and think of this song. I think it's a great song. It really
Yeah.
does. I never get tired of it. What do you think of this?
No, I do. I think it's a great song as well. I mean, it's a classic for, the whole classic for a reason argument. I mean, it's a little bit, it's one of those songs you've heard a lot. And I feel like it's a little bit, I mean, maybe a tad like fatigue from it, but still, but when I listen to it objectively, I go, it's a great song. I mean, it's just it's that Deep Purple magic is happening on this track. You can't deny it, you know.
Kids could play it in high school. It's sort
Yeah.
of like when any kid goes into a guitar store or in high school music or primary school music, those notes.
Yeah. Yeah. And you kind of wonder I mean, this is always what I think of when I hear this track. I always think, was Richie kind of thinking like, this is kind of like a basic riff, but it's kind of cool. Like it's so basic for him, but like he couldn't resist it kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
It's
It's
so
so basic.
simple, Tom. It's
It's so simple.
genius.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
simple, it's genius. And sometimes simple things are genius.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Yep.
matches the story of, some stupid in a flare gun burning the casino down. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
based on a true event that happened, and the story is compelling. I think it's one of Ian Gillan's greatest lyrics because he's telling a story. It's
Yeah. I
compelling.
do love the lyrics. I do love it. It tells the whole story of the record, basically, right? It's a whole thing almost.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Every bit, I love it. I think it's their masterpiece, but it's so simple, and
Yes.
that's where the mastery comes from. Its simplicity,
Yeah.
and it's got a guitar. Again, I'll bring it back to the guitar riff or the guitar lead break. I can hum it. But it's
Yes.
really funny when you listen to the bonus version of Smoke on the Water. Richie did a different lead bracket every time.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So he could not stick to a single guitar riff when he was doing all the various takes, but the one that
Yeah.
was laid down on tape is the one that he's, played live, and they stuck with that. But there were all these different types of different versions and different approaches, but I think he picked the best one. But it's hummable, it's melodic.
Yes. Oh yeah. Again, once again, that melodic solo. And it's kind of reminds me a little bit of the Gilmore thing with Comfortably Numb, where they just let him run, do a bunch of takes, and he did different solos every time. And then they comped a bunch of them together for the final. It kind of reminds me of that.
Yep.
So
All right. The next one is Lazy. What do you think of this song?
oh wow. I love Lazy. It's kind of a jam. It sort of comes off as almost like a jam, but man, what a cool jam. I mean, it, it has this sort of thing where it kind of takes off. You're kind of wondering what's going to happen with this track. And all of a sudden it just like they just whoosh. And when they take off, you're like, oh man, here we go, Deep Purple, like this is classic. And I love how it kind of starts really kind of jazzy, almost like it kind of has this sort of, and then Richie's doing the ding da 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 bow, and it's like this kind of jazzy almost. And then all of a sudden when it just takes off, when Pacey kind of hits his full stride, and they just all get in, and the solos are just fantastic. I love this track. I love Lazy.
I did
Yeah.
a show last year, which was best song, worst song of every Deep Purple Mark II, and I picked this as the worst song on the album. But in retrospect, I was probably a little bit harsh. I do enjoy this song, but I guess I was getting a little bit fatigued. But
Right.
I just played this recently as just a refresher for this, and I do like it. It's
Mhm.
it's a boogie shuffle,
Right.
but it's kind of a little bit more free form, and they seem like they're really expanding it out. It's not so tight and constructed. It seems to be a little bit more loose.
Right.
And
Right.
Ian Gillan, again, it's a really loose, compelling vocal line, and gets the harmonica, and the band are just firing because a lot of people, love when Deep Purple jam, and they're really jamming on this one. And Lazy, when it was played live, it was, boy, that was like
Ups
a
even
centerpiece
more
when they
so.
would really expand out and
Yeah,
stretch
even
out.
more. Yeah, even more so. Yeah, even their made in Japan version like even better. So but I agree with you. This isn't usually my thing. I don't usually like these sort of shuffle jam kind of things. It's usually not my cup of tea.
Mm.
But when Deep Purple does it, you're like, oh, okay, it's pretty
Yep,
awesome. I like it.
yep, yep.
Yeah. So
Now, out of all the songs, the one that when I was doing a playthrough ahead of this show that I really, really enjoyed, and I was thinking, this is such an inventive, sonically song, was Space Truckin'.
yeah.
There's so much to unpack and digest. It's really kind of experimental. There's a lot happening. Pacey's drumming is just outwardly, out there. He's just numero uno. Um,
Mhm.
I'll throw it over to you first. So what do you think of this song?
Yeah. I mean, I just did a chef's kiss. I think that kind of sums it up. I mean, I just this track, like you said, where do you start with this song? That's a great way to start the conversation with this because there's so many things going on. I always think of the Gillan vocal at the end when he's doing the yeah, yeah, it's Truckin'. I mean, it just when he goes up in his register and it's already cranking, and then he ups the intensity with his vocal. It's just like, oh my God. Again, I keep saying that, but it's just there's a lot of oh my God moments on this record where you're just like the hard rock factor is just on 11. Um, and this is one of those. And again, it swings. We kept talking about this, but it's the pace swing thing again, where he goes, and he's doing double time, and it's just, oof. And then the Lord keyboard thing. We got that going on again. It sounds fantastic. So I don't know where to start. I just think it's a gem of a song. So
Yeah, there's a few interesting things because I was doing a bit of research because you hear these kind of blips, and I always thought they might be a guitar effect or some sort of amp effect, and it's actually John Lord doing conga slaps on the keyboard.
Oh,
I
okay.
never knew that, but you know how there's kind of these. There's a bit where Richie's doing the, a little bit of a solo, and Pacey's doing the drum pattern, and there's kind of these blips. It's the keyboard. Um,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think Pace is the hero of this song. This is
Yeah.
really a showcase for his drum lines all the way through it. There's some really interesting drum patterns, and I think that basically Richie and everyone else is weaving around Ian Pace. I think he is
Mhm.
really the hero of this song. You know, it's a perfect album closer. There's a bit of sort of symmetry because you start off with Machine Head in the Machine Head album with Highway Star, where you've got the the helium vocals, the real sort of
Yeah.
banshee sort of vocal lines, and he finishes
Right.
it with a banshee vocal line. You know,
Yes, he does.
it's kind
Yeah.
of both heavy. They're kind of bookends, but Space Trucking is just, you know, rhythmically, it's just such an interesting quasi experimental song, but it just works so well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, yeah. And I don't know. It's just ensemble playing at its best. It just feels like everybody's firing on all cylinders,
Yep.
you know?
This album is very economical. It's not a
Yeah.
long album,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's in the era of just not not an inch of fat.
No.
It's trimmed.
7 songs.
Yep,
Yeah. Crazy. I mean,
absolutely.
and that's what something that I love about it. And it's, you know, I love that back in the day they were forced to make it economical.
Do you think they could have found room for When a Blind Man Cries?
Possibly, but I mean, that's an all right song, but I don't know that it would make it
Yeah,
better.
there's a lot of people that love that song, and Richie didn't want a ballad. So,
Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
But
think the
it's a good
song,
song.
it is.
Yeah.
It's a really good song. I think the track listing is kind of perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't want to mess with it. I just think it's like you just said it. It's economical, and I love that about it. I love that it's just like hits you and gets out. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yep,
Perfect.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
So I end with
Okay.
the word perfect, and now we're moving on to the next one.
Okay, folks. So in the
Oh,
days of movies where they used to have an intermission, so if you want to get a cup of coffee, and we're going to go into part two.
oh,
Do you remember the
yes.
days when they used to have intermission at the movies, those really long movies, and you could go out, get your popcorn, and come
Let's
back in?
all go to
Anyway,
the lobby. Let's all go. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
there we go. What an iconic album cover.
Love it. Love the album cover. Oh
Yeah,
my
I
God.
love Machine Head, where you got the plate, the metal plate, and those. I
Yes.
think that's iconic. But
That's great
boy,
too.
this gives it a run for its money.
Yeah.
That's
Even the
inspired.
back. I love the back too, where they have the actual
Yep,
faces above.
yep.
So cool.
So David Coverdale in the band, Glenn Hughes. So Glenn Hughes was brought into the project first. Those bands, Trapeze. He was in a band called Trapeze, and Deep Purple were kind of playing with them. And you know, I think apparently a year before Glenn joined the band, there was an expressed interest. So there were things are happening well and truly before he joined the band on the Deep Purple front. David Coverdale came in, but originally Richie wanted Paul Rogers because he was a big Paul Rogers fan.
Yeah.
I love that tone,
Yeah.
but Paul said no. So they did a big audition process, and David Coverdale did this very drunken sort of audition tape. And out of listening to 200, 300 warblers, John Lord heard something and thought, hey, that lad's got nice tone.
Hmm.
Anyway, he auditioned, and the rest is history. It was the tone of David Coverdale. And Richie always said that he loved the Coverdale voice. They had that masculine tone. So, I mean, to me, this is an interesting album because you've got two singers. You've got
Yeah.
the soul Stevie Wonder R&B influenced Glenn Hughes, and then you've got the deep sort of lower tone ality of David Coverdale. And I've always said that this album to me is like Sam and Dave playing hard rock.
It's like the hard rock Sam and Dave. I never thought of that before. That's great.
Yeah. That's Sam and Dave, folks, not Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
all right, let's go into it. Burn. What do you think of that song?
One of my favorite Deep Purple songs of all time. I mean, it's up there. I don't know if it'd be number one, but it's close. I mean, Burn is just what a way to start the record. I mean, it just jumps out of the speakers. And when the first time I heard this song, I was just blown away. And it's still, again, it's one of those tracks that for some reason, still to this day, I mean, you said it earlier that they thrive under tough circumstances. And I think that this song is like throwing down the gauntlet. Like, it's like, oh, we just lost our singer and our bass player. Well, watch this. It's like a Richie saying, check this out. And they come out swinging with Burn. And it's like both singers, like you said, we have two singers in the band now, and both of them are singing on this track at full volume. And when they do that, it's like, and they hold that note and they're in harmony. And it's like, and then the riff comes in. I mean, and Pace is playing out of his mind. I mean, out of his mind. I mean, Pace is never, I mean, he's always amazing, but on this track, he's extra amazing. Just almost playing like a solo the whole time. But still saying right with the groove, which is really, really hard to do. So I'm blown away by this track. This perfection. Love it. Is that enough? I don't know what else to say.
Oh, look, well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just have to stop and just put my hands together. Oh, wow. What an opener. Yeah. And I remember somebody described it as a sped up Smoke on the Water riff. I don't know. Or a different variation of the chord progressions. You're a guitarist. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's similar. But look, you've got all the flourishes there. You've got Lordy doing the Hammond Baroque bit. You've got Richie with his machine gun, melodic, tasteful, hooky, hummable guitar line. And, you know, the band are firing. Even Glenn Hughes, his bass playing, you hear these runs where he's just going up and down the fretboard. I've recited this so many times, but Richie Blackmore said that Glenn Hughes is so naturally talented that he never practiced the bass. He'd just come in cold and just do it. And, you know, he is what he is. He's just got that talent. And Pacey's drumming is just phenomenal. So this is sort of like a highway star in the sense that it's a signature song. It's an opener, and it became the opener of Mark III, and it is a message of intent. This is what we are. This is what we're going to be doing, even though it didn't really happen, only, you know, because it started to fall away in subsequent albums, just showing that Deep Purple are back.
Yeah. This is them saying, oh, yeah, we lost people, but we're not missing a step. Watch this.
Yep,
you know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Then you have Might Just Take Your Life. It's got a bit of groove to it, a little bit of R&B.
Yeah, this is where the R&B starts creeping in a little bit with Glenn Hughes. And they, you know, it starts out with those big Hammond organ chords or whatever that and then apparently it was inspired a little bit by Stage Fright by the band, apparently. That's what I had read, but you're right. It kind of has this groove to it, and it's got these, you know, the first time you hear Glenn Hughes kind of doing that soul man vibe a little bit on his vocal, but it works. It works, and because, you know, as soon as you start thinking it's kind of groovy, they start doing the whole "Might Just Take Your Life." I mean, they just start doing this high kind of vocals where sound almost metalish kind of yelling vocal. So I really like this track. I think that again, the combination of Coverdale and Hughes with the vocals, I just think is awesome.
Yeah,
And
it works.
yeah,
It
yeah,
just
it works.
works. It works. It works well. And sometimes live it didn't work because Glenn would be sort of going a little bit over the top, and it seemed like
Yes.
it got a bit too competitive. But with
Yeah.
I feel on this album, everyone was pulling in the right direction. They knew what they needed to do for the songs, and the album is just so much better for it. And this song is just a great second track. The next one is Lay Down, Stay Down. The lyrics are a little bit white snake. I think
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
David's letting this is going to be my template in the future. Just
Yes.
putting the cat out of the bag. The
Yes.
hook, the part of this song that I really like is where there's just piano in the middle,
Yeah.
and Richie's firing his guitar, but it's really good to hear John Lord play the piano instead of a Hammond. It's got a different sort of texture. What do you think of this
Yeah.
song?
Yeah, I John Lord is such a under I don't know, it's like I want to say it's not really a secret weapon, but it kind of feels like it sometimes. And when they let John Lord loose, you're like, God, he's so talented. Like, God, like you forget about how great he is until something like that happens where they feature him and you're like, oh my God. Like he and Richie are just like you said, they had mutual respect, and that was what I think sometimes that drove the creativity. But yeah, I like this song. I enjoy it. I agree with you. The lyrics are a little bit like, what is he? Wow. Okay. Lay down. Okay. And like you said, very White Snake. And that's perfect way to say it. Where he does the keep on pushing for more, it's kind of like, all right, what are we pushing for? But I think I understand what he was talking about. Um,
It's all there, folks. It's right from day one. Like
yeah, it's,
Burn
yeah,
might just take your life. So Richie says, "Okay, Burn, we've got a bit of swords and sorcery. Might just
yeah,
take your life. That's a little bit soul." And David goes, "Hey, I've got a lyric suggestion," and it's all out
yeah,
there. This is
it's
who I'm
there.
going to become.
This is the template, people. It's there. It's right there.
Slide it in 10 years later. This is
Slide
happening.
it in right to the top. I'm never going to stop. I mean, that's the next big lyric he's got in his bag. But
But you forgive it. You forgive it because the music is so damn good.
completely couldn't agree more. The music is awesome. So I totally forgive the lyric. That's a great way to say it. I totally forgive it. So yeah, I like this track. I think it's, and again, they do it's amazing how well Coverdale and Hughes blend on this record. And they literally are the first album together. And it's like, wow, they are really blending well together. Oh my God, you know? So
Yeah, absolutely. They're on fire. Okay, so then we go to Sail Away. This has got kind of a rolling riff. What do you think of this one?
yeah, I mean, that's a great way to say it. It has this sort of slow groove to it, kind of heavy but slow. And I enjoyed. I mean, the first side is just all pretty killer for me. I don't really have any problem with Sail Away. It has this kind of cool, almost like synthesizer. I'm not sure what he's playing at the end of that, but it's great. It's very evocative and very cool sounding. And I do like Coverdale's vocal. Again, he really gives it his all. He's got that low, let's sail away tomorrow, and he's really doing a great job with it. So yeah, I don't. I mean, it's a kind of a slow groove, and it's a cool sort of a circular riff that kind of keeps going in a circle. I enjoy it. I mean, it's a good album side closer. So
Yeah, I was just sort of thinking, and it dawned upon me that, like when you make your first album, that kind of sets up a template for the rest of your rest of your artistic career. Because like Sail Away, um, these are lyrical themes that Coverdale has covered subsequent, especially like in album closes or a side closer. Like he did a song on Slip of the Tongue, Whitesnake, which is called Sailing Ships.
right, yep,
This is it's sort of like a song which is kind of mystical and you can sort of, you visualize the video clip would be like it's all misty and the boats are just going into the moors,
Yes.
out of the
Yes.
moors, and it's very kind
Yep.
of a bit of a mood piece, very atmospheric. And these are the sort of songs that Coverdale has brought into Whitesnake, in respect of album closes, or, sort of a track that he wants to do a bit of a palate cleanser. So
Right.
this album has planted the seed for much, so many ideas that have bared fruit in different albums.
Definitely. Definitely. He was pretty inspired right when he joined. I mean, I'm sure he was so excited to be part of Deep Purple. And that, I mean, this probably put an indelible print on his future endeavors, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You
So,
Fool No One. What a crazy drum pattern. And I heard that Pacey, it took him a whole day, or took him a long time to get it right. But wow, it's
yeah.
such an inspired drum line. So
Yeah.
much energy, this song. What do you think of this one?
Love it. Again, love, love. I mean, it's you're gonna want, yeah, more cowbell. I mean, guys, you're gonna want more cowbell on this track. I mean, but no, he does this awesome like drum pattern, and you can tell that the whole song was sort of built on this drum pattern. Because you can almost see Richie kind of coming up with the strat and going, oh, and playing along with him, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, we got a song. And man, it just powers through. It just man, and again, I keep saying this, but it's the whole Hughes Coverdale harmonies almost throughout the whole song, and it just works like a charm. And yeah, this is a great way to kick off side two. I just think it's a fantastic, fantastic track. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Deep Purple have fantastic opener tracks on sides or albums,
Yeah.
and this is just fantastic. I think this is just behind Burn as my favorite song on this album. I think it's that
Yes. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that great, and there's just so much energy, and yeah, just the vocals. Sam and Dave, they're
Yeah.
soaring, and I love it. All right, what's going on here?
Yeah, this is kind of like a almost like they leave little crumbs as to where they're going next. This one kind of again has almost like a soul. This kind of feels a little bit like stuff on that was going to come on Stormbringer a little bit. Because this one, yeah, this it's interesting, but it's not. I wouldn't. I mean, after You Fool No One, which is just like 5 stars,
Phenomenal.
this yeah, this one kind of feels like a little bit of a letdown after that track. Um, but I still, it still has a lot of feeling to it. There's still a lot of emotion and feeling and great ensemble playing, as Deep Purple always does. Um, but yeah, it's not quite. It doesn't have the same impact for me. For me, it's a little bit of a lesser track, possibly for me.
It's a deep cut. It's probably not top shelf on this album, but there's still a lot to like. I like how
So
the
good, so
vocals
good. Yeah.
mix with each other, how the
Mhm.
two vocalists mix with each other, and it's got an interesting arrangement. But I agree, it's probably the lesser of these songs. Oh, Mistreated. Martin Popoff described this as one of the original power ballads. What do you think of this?
Yeah, it kind of is a power ballad a little bit. And I mean, it really became like Coverdale's like calling card. Would you say that? I mean, he played it like
Signature
live
song.
forever. Yeah,
Signature
forever.
song. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he would always come back to it. So obviously he felt like it was a great showcase for him, and it is. It's kind of the slow blues thing that maybe possibly Blackmore envisioned with Paul Rogers. Maybe this is kind of the way they could have gone if Paul Rogers had become the lead singer. He could have done more songs like this. I enjoy it, but it's not like I go, wow, I can't wait to listen to Mistreated. I like it, but I don't like. I like Burn and You Fool No One and Lay Down, Stay Down. And those are like more like that's the jam for me. And then this, I enjoy it, but it's like, I'll listen to it. I don't skip it, but it's and maybe it's just because it got played so much over the years. Maybe it got a little bit fatigue from it. But
Yeah. Have you heard the versions with like Rainbow and Ronnie James Dio or Whitesnake? I think there's a lot of different bands or offshoot bands of Deep Purple that have covered this song. Have you heard those
Yeah,
versions?
I haven't heard like Dio sing it. Is it better? Do you like that?
Well, he
What do you
plays it. He does it straight. But to me, I think that David Coverdale wrote the lyrics. He's got the conviction, and I sort
Right.
of attach it with his voice. And
Yes.
I think there's a version on Live in the Heart of the City where you've got Bernie Mars and Mick Moody, and it's just wonderful. He's really it's an electric performance. But look, I sort of get where you're coming from. To me, the sweet spot of this song is when it builds up momentum towards the end, you know,
Right.
and you
Right.
hear Glenn Hughes and the backup vocals, and it starts to ramp up to a bit of a crescendo. Being the power
Yeah.
ballad, this is where the power comes in because it is a slow
Right.
build.
Yes.
And that's the sweet spot. That's the bit where it kind of gets to the climax of the song. And that's where I think the emotional sweet spot for me. So I never
Yeah.
get sick of that part of the song. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of odd. That's the, I like the start and the build up, and he's building the story and talking about how he's been wrong, but it's just that phonetic bit at the end.
Yeah, at the end. Yeah, when it
Do
really
you
kind
ever
of
do
kicks.
that, Tom, with songs? Like they're just, you can hear a song and there might be a passage that might go for half a minute. And that's the bit where if you had the YouTube clip, you just go straight to that and you get the hairs on the back of your neck go up.
Yes.
You just love that
Yeah, no.
part. But the whole
Yeah.
song, you mightn't be as strong about.
Right. And I could see how live this could really kick. Like I could see how you'd get a live version where you'd make it really good. And honestly, I do think I agree with you. It is a slow burn. It's kind of a slow, like just keeps building and building. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Since I've Been Loving You from Led Zeppelin 3, like a little bit like where it's like a slow burn that just at the end it kind of it kind of hits you. So yeah, I think it's a very good vocal. I mean, it's an excellent vocal from Coverdale,
I think
you
you've
know.
hit it on the nail because you
Yeah.
just said the word burn a few times. So there's maybe this is the emotional center of the album. It
Yeah.
is a slow burn.
Yes, there we go. There we go. So yeah, no, I
Yeah,
mean it's a good. I mean it's good. I mean I feel like I'm acting like I don't like. I do enjoy it. I think it's a good track.
yeah, yeah. Now, the last track, A200, gets kind of reviled. Maybe that's too harsh a word, but people say
Yes,
it's
yes.
throwaway. But by Jingo, Richie's got a cracking guitar solo in this. I
Yeah.
don't dislike this track in any shape or form. What do you think of this?
That was my next. I was going to ask you. I was going to say, what do you think of A200? That's always the question, right? And I think it's interesting. I mean, I think it's kind of a different, like it's like almost like a little detour that they take at the very end. And like you said, there's some really electric, fiery guitar stuff on this. So yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, I don't think it's bad.
Yeah.
No, I think it's pretty good.
All right. My question to you, the track listing, do you think it feels a bit funny that it finishes with A200 and not mistreated? Because you think the power ballad would be the one where it just leaves you, breathless,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And then you've got
yeah.
this funny dun dun dun, dun this little funny, obscure, quirky but interesting instrumental at the end. Does it sound? Is it a little bit jarring? Does it feel a little bit, in
It
out of
yeah,
whack?
I can't lie. It does feel a little bit tacked on. Like it's kind of you're right. Like maybe A200 could have been before Mistreated. I don't know. Like that's just I'm nitpicking here, but like, maybe they do that little
Where
detour
would
and
you
then
put
do
it
it.
though? I'm looking.
Yeah,
Where would you
I don't
slot it?
know. I don't know. It's weird. I would say that this definitely is. I mean, there's no doubt that there's a reason why people pick on this track because it kind of feels like an outlier on the record. Um, it feels a little bit. I like it, but it feels like an outlier from the rest of the record for some reason. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, but
All right.
yeah, I don't
I
know. I
like
don't know
it.
where
I
you
like
put
it.
it. I like it, but I don't know where you would maybe put it. What if Mistreated and A200 got switched? Like, what if what's going on here that
Yeah,
A200 then
no,
Mistreated? I don't know.
no, that would have felt that would have been weirder.
That would have been yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So, but you're right. Mistreated feels like the end of the record, though. It really does. It feels like,
yeah,
especially after that long build, it feels like the end of the record.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. Um,
Anyway.
All right.
Oh,
Oh,
is
folks,
it
this
that
is
time?
where Tom stresses out. I can see, look, the perspiration is just streaming down his
It's
cheek.
it's this is
It's
really,
it's freezing in Chicago, but the heat that's generating off Tom at the moment is
yes.
just, his head's going to explode,
Yes,
literally.
it's this feels like feels like I'm being like disloyal to whoever I pick. I feel like I feel bad for the other record. It's one of those.
Yeah.
But I've thought about this a lot, and I think uh I think I gotta go. I gotta go Machine Head, because this is just like ingrained in this is like one of the first records I owned. So it's like it's like sentimental for me. It kind of goes, it's like part of my DNA with music. I mean, this influenced my musical taste like from like almost day one. So it's really hard to say this loses uh to Burn, because this is the album that like put me on a track of hard rock. This is my first, almost like my first hard rock album almost. I mean, along with Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin was there too, but this was like you said, this is almost like a different animal a little bit. There's something different about it. And it's phenomenal. Like you said, there's not a note wasted on this album. There's nothing. Everything is top notch. And for me, everything, even Lazy, love Lazy. So like for me, this whole album is just awesome. This this album is amazing as well, as we've talked about. And some of the highlights on here, I talk about this a lot in these battles. Like some of the highlights could be almost as good or better on this record. Like Burn, and like we talked about the two starting track, Burn and You Fool No One. It's like, what? They're almost better than than some of the tracks on Machine Head. Um but yeah, and this is a phenomenal record. I mean, I just want to say how great this is. So I picked Machine Head, but this is so hard. Yeah, this is so hard.
Oh, well, good. No, appreciate that.
That's my reasoning right there. That's it. Yeah.
That's me.
See, you're going Burn. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
by a decimal point. I just think I
Yeah.
like the danger. I think it's kind of sexy. I think
Yeah.
I don't know, to me, Machine Head sounds very dry, and
Mhm.
I do say clinical, but it's just separation. It's very dry sounding, but the performances, the arrangements are absolutely brilliant. But there's the excitement level of Burn. It's
Yeah.
maybe it's because of the new blood. There's a freshness about it, and there's a bit of danger, and
Yes.
you've got basically the new blood are bringing Deep Purple in a different direction, and at that particular time, you didn't know where things were going, and that was the excitement level. Obviously, it petered out with Stormbringer, and the rest is in history. But for that brief moment of time, there was a lot of excitement, and you can see it in the playing. And I
Yeah.
think the highs are super high, and I just like it. I just love the combination of Coverdale and Hughes. I love the soul, the R&B, and I think maybe it plays more to my musical palette, because I think the
Right.
Deep Purple Machine Head is a little bit more traditional,
Hmm.
but Burn plays into the other genres of music that I really enjoy, the soul, the R&B, or the influence, sort of the inflections, or the proximity to those, even though it's not
Yes.
directly. And it sort of opened up the possibilities that maybe hard rock could embrace soul and R&B, but it wasn't to be. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I can't argue. I mean, it's you're right. And to your point, the point that you made earlier that I think is really like spot on is that Richie is totally engaged in Burn. He is like he's actually more than engaged. He's motivated. He wants this album to
mm,
be a breakout Deep Purple album. You can tell. You can
yep.
tell.
And it did
Yeah.
really well in America, went top 10, and it sort of
Yeah.
continued. A lot of folks just thought that, uh, you know, There
They
was a
thought,
little bit of
yeah,
there was a little bit of confusion. Like there was Machine Head, Made in Japan, and Burn all charting at the same time.
right, right. Yes, yes.
So
So I have to ask you before we stop. Last question for you, and that is, we skipped "Who Do We Think We Are?" Obviously, but those that's the album between these two. So what's your take on that? Like a quick take on "Who Do We Think We Are"? Do you think that's a because a lot of people say that album's just not very good. What's your take on that record?
it's underrated. It's got some great
Yeah,
tracks on it, and
yeah,
even the lesser Deep Purple albums have got some fantastic tracks on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but there
Got
are
that blue.
some songs that are not quite as inspired as Machine Head or Burn. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a dud album. I don't think that there were in that era, the Mark II, Mark III, or in the 70s. I'll make a
Mhm.
blanket statement. I don't think Deep Purple made a truly dud album.
No, they didn't. I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yep. So
Tom, it's absolutely wonderful having you on the show. This was absolutely an epic show, but I wouldn't expect anything less. And I'm sorry, I hope I didn't create too many health problems. You can have a good night's sleep tonight because, folks, he told me that he was tossing and turning. He even
yes.
asked his wife, who should I pick? And she goes, I don't
I
know.
don't care. He said, I don't care. I
I
don't
don't
care.
care,
Yeah. Yeah.
both. But no, wonderful having Tom on the show. Check out Curlessmania. Lots of great content. You don't just do album battles. You just do coverage of albums and a lot of different stuff. There's a whole different
Yeah.
variety of stuff. So just check it out. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Tell us what your favorite Deep Purple album is. We love reading your comments, but one thing's for sure, me and Tom will be doing some more shows in 2025. Good night and
Hmm.
all the best, and cheers.